Hey everyone, Percy here. So today we're going to talk about the brand new Pigments 3 synthesizer by Arturia. Just purchased it myself a few days ago, paid for it with my own hard-earned cash, and in this video I'm going to tell you if I think it's been worth it.
Supercy.
Alright, Pigment 3 by Arturia. Now let me first say this, I am going to leave a link to Plugin Boutique in the description. It's going to be an affiliate link, which means that should you be interested, you can use that link. Wouldn't cost you anything more, but I would get a little commission, which of course would help support me and this channel. By the way, at the moment Pigment is on sale. It's an introductory sale for 50% off. So again, should you be interested, go check it out. Alright, now after installing, this is what it looks like. By the way, at the end of the video I am going to let you listen to a little demo song that I created with this. But first let's do a quick overview of the interface. Alright, now the basis of this instrument is its engines. Now this thing has two engines, as it is called. By the way, with the introduction of version 3, it kind of has three engines, but we'll get to that in a second. Now within those two engines we can choose between four different engine types. So first of all we have the analog engine type. Now the analog engine type has three oscillators, and within each oscillator we can choose between 5 different waveforms. Alright, now next we have the wavetable engine type. Now this thing has tons of wavetables, and with the introduction of version 3, 64 new wavetables have been added. So that's quite a bit to choose from. Now then we have the sample engine type. Now let me just call it a pretty advanced sample player. By the way, it also has a granular module, so there's really a lot we can do with this. Okay, and then finally we have the harmonic engine, and with the harmonic engine we can choose a certain waveform, and then we can add harmonics to that waveform and thereby creating the sound. Now obviously part of the power of Pigments is the combination of the two engines, and as I mentioned with the introduction of version 3, another kind of engine has been added, and that is the utility engine. Now the basic idea behind the utility engine is to add a little bit of texture, a little bit of color to the already existing sound. So we have two noise generators, and with those noise generators, you know, we can add some, I don't know, some bird sounds, even some crowd sounds, you know, many different kinds of texture we can add to the sound. Now the engines feed into the filter section, so this is the filter section right here. Okay, now one thing I really like about the filter section is that it has some very flexible routing options. Now then up here we can go to the effects section. Pretty extensive effects section with a pretty sophisticated routing system. Now one thing that is new relative to version 2 is the pitch shift delay. Now the pitch shift delay obviously is a delay that can pitch shift, which can bring us some really interesting results. And also now we have a multi-band compressor, something you don't see in every synthesizer. And then we also have two new modulation effects. Now and then here we have the sequencer. Now I'm not going to say too much about the sequencer other than that it's a great sequencer with a lot of options. I could make an entire video on this sequencer alone. Now this bar in the middle is the so-called modulation bar. Here we can see basically anything that goes on in terms of modulation. So for example, here we can see that LFO2 is active in a way. So let's click it. And here we can see that it is actually modulating something, and what it is modulating is within engine 1, the fine knob, which is this knob right here. But we can add something else that we can modulate. So for example, let's modulate this morph knob right here, and we can do that by just changing the value to anything. Let's do that. And here now you can see that LFO2 is now also modulating this knob. Now there is another way to modulate knobs. If you hover over any modulatable knob, if that's a word, you will see that a plus symbol will appear. Now if you click that plus symbol, you can choose anything to modulate it with. So let's say LFO1. Okay, let's change the value, and now this is being modulated by LFO1. Okay, now and then down here we have the modulation tab. So here we can change the parameters of the envelopes, LFOs, etc. So you know, it's a pretty sophisticated system, yet it is pretty easy to understand. Now, of course, this synthesizer comes with tons of presets. And one last thing I'll mention is this little light bulb up here. So if you've chosen a particular preset and then hover over that light bulb with your mouse, it will show you some information about that preset. So it will show you the sound designer, a little story about that sound designer, and some more information about that particular sound. So that's a nice little touch. Now, obviously, this has just been a very quick overview of the interface. It's not at all an in-depth tutorial on how to use Pigments 3. For that, I would refer you to the video series on YouTube by Arturia itself. I will leave a link in the description to that as well. So if you're like me and you don't want to read too much, I don't like reading, well, in that case, you can watch those videos and it will give you some very useful information about using Pigments. Okay, back to the question. So, has it been worth it for me purchasing this synthesizer? Or did I spend my money on something useless? Now let me say this. So, why did I buy Pigments? Well, I believe that every musician, every once in a while, needs to be inspired somehow. You know, to find the energy, to find the spark we need to keep creating. Now, what that inspiration looks like, that may differ a little bit from person to person, but for most musicians, one of the best ways of getting inspired is by hearing and using new sounds. Now, of course, we could just get a bunch of new samples, would probably be a bit cheaper also, but we don't just want new sounds, we also want to have control over those sounds without necessarily having to dive in too deep into the realm of sound design, because most of us inherently aren't really sound designers. So what I was looking for was a new high-end synthesizer that has a lot of possibilities, a lot of flexibility, that has an interface which is relatively easy to use and to understand, with which I can relatively easy and quickly create and tweak sounds. Well, I have to say with Pigments, so far, I haven't been disappointed at all, because it seems like that is exactly what it is. So again, back to the question, has it been worth it for me purchasing Pigments 3? Absolutely. I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun using this. And based on my experience so far, I would definitely recommend at least checking it out. So that's basically it for today. As promised, I'm gonna leave you with a little demo song I just created with Pigments. So enjoy, and I'm gonna talk to you in the next video.